Have you ever stopped yourself from pursuing something extraordinary because a whisper inside told you, that's beyond someone like you? Perhaps you conceived a venture but persuaded yourself to aim lower. Perhaps you envisioned guiding others but decided you're more suited to supporting roles. Or perhaps you observe people accomplishing remarkable feats and assume they're fundamentally different. They possess qualities I lack. If you've ever diminished yourself to conform to what you believe is achievable, then this narrative is meant for you. Because there once lived a person who embraced limitation his whole existence until one unforeseen inquiry demolished every boundary he had constructed. And what transpired afterward transformed not only his existence, but the existences of countless others. Remain with me through the conclusion. In a modest community where everybody recognized everybody, there resided a 35-year-old individual named Marcus. Marcus operated a compact retail shop that his grandfather had transferred to him. The shop was merely sufficient to accommodate the locals. Several racks of essential merchandise, a modest checkout area, nothing elaborate. And Marcus was satisfied with that. He had absorbed from his grandfather, stay grounded. Don't aspire too loftily or you'll descend too severely. A modest, consistent enterprise is superior to an ambitious, uncertain vision. Therefore, Marcus existed by that principle. When patrons recommended he enlarge the shop, he would grin courteously and respond, "Oh, I'm content with my current situation. I don't require more than this." When his spouse Jennifer presented him publications about individuals who commenced modestly and constructed corporations, Marcus would decline his head. Those individuals are distinct. They possess degrees. They possess capital. They possess networks. We're merely average individuals. But deep into evening, when the shop was secured and the illumination was faint, Marcus would occasionally position himself at the glass and gaze at the vacant property adjacent. It was spacious enough to construct something 4 times the magnitude of his present shop. And for merely an instant he would envision it. Broader passages, additional inventory, perhaps even a modest beverage area. Individuals assembling, conversing, establishing relationships. But then the whisper would arrive, "Who are you deceiving? You scarcely operate this modest establishment. You believe you can manage something more substantial?" And Marcus would secure the entrance, return home, and dismiss the vision. His spouse Jennifer observed what he couldn't perceive. She observed a person with capability, with commitment, with interpersonal abilities. She observed someone who could construct something extraordinary. One evening, she suggested tenderly, "Marcus, what if we attempted? What if we enlarged even slightly?" Marcus's reaction was consistently identical. "Jennifer, we're functioning adequately. Why jeopardize what we possess for what we might not accomplish? Let's appreciate consistent and modest." But consistent and modest was gradually stifling him. He didn't comprehend it yet, but he wasn't embracing limitation because he was pragmatic. He was embracing limitation because he was frightened. Then one spring, everything transformed. A massive retail corporation announced they were establishing a location 3 blocks distant. Contemporary, streamlined, reduced costs, enormous variety. Marcus's spirit plummeted. Within 4 months, his patron volume declined by 60%. Individuals he had recognized for decades apologized as they proceeded past his shop toward the corporation. Regrettable, Marcus. It's simply more accessible there. Marcus positioned behind his checkout area, observing the hours elapse. With only several patrons entering sporadically, his reserves diminished, obligations accumulated. The modest, consistent enterprise his grandfather had constructed was vanishing. One evening, after the most devastating sales period in 18 years, Marcus secured the shop prematurely. He positioned on the surface behind the checkout area, his head in his palms, and uttered, "I should have accomplished more. I should have expanded when I possessed the opportunity." For the initial occasion in his existence, he perceived the reality. Embracing limitation hadn't safeguarded him, it had rendered him vulnerable. Jennifer discovered him there 90 minutes afterward. She positioned beside him in the quietness. Eventually, she stated, "There's someone I believe you should consult with." Mrs. Rodriguez, the entrepreneur who constructed the technology network throughout the region. She matured in this community. She commenced with less than you possess. Marcus glanced upward. Why would someone of that caliber converse with someone like myself? Because, Jennifer stated decisively, 25 years ago, she was precisely like you, and someone assisted her perceive differently. That evening, Marcus couldn't rest. Before daybreak, he formulated a resolution that terrified him. He would request assistance. 4 days afterward, Marcus positioned nervously in Mrs. Rodriguez's workspace. It was on the 18th level of a structure in the business district, more elevated than Marcus had ever been. Through the glass panels, he could observe the entire community distributed below, appearing so much more diminished from up here. Mrs. Rodriguez was in her late 50s, attired unpretentiously with compassionate eyes that had witnessed both defeat and victory. She indicated to a seat. "Position yourself, Marcus. Jennifer informed me about your circumstances." Marcus positioned, sensing displaced. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I don't comprehend why I'm here. My shop is declining. I'm not the category of individual who constructs substantial enterprises." Mrs. Rodriguez smiled gently. "I contemplated the precise identical concept about myself once." She proceeded to the glass panel. "Approach here. Gaze outward." Marcus accompanied her. The perspective was magnificent. "Marcus, do you perceive that structure?" Mrs. Rodriguez indicated to an elevated construction in the expanse. 15 years ago, that was a vacant property, merely soil and vegetation. Someone positioned there and stated, "I'm going to construct something." And they accomplished it. She turned to Marcus. "Do you comprehend what made that feasible?" Marcus declined his head. One resolution, they resolved to conceive more substantially than the vacant property. Mrs. Rodriguez proceeded to her work surface and retrieved 2 transparent vessels. One was a modest tumbler. The other was an expansive pitcher. She filled the modest tumbler with liquid. This, she stated, is what transpires when you embrace limitation. The liquid fills it instantaneously. It perceives secure contained, but it can never transform into more than this. She transferred the liquid from the tumbler into the pitcher. It scarcely concealed the foundation. Now observe. Retrieved 2 transparent vessels. One was a modest tumbler. The other was an expansive pitcher. She filled the modest tumbler with liquid. This, she stated, is what transpires when you embrace limitation. The liquid fills it instantaneously. It perceives secure contained, but it can never transform into more than this. She transferred the liquid from the tumbler into the pitcher. It scarcely concealed the foundation. Now observe. She filled the pitcher entirely. When you conceive substantially, the identical exertion, the identical liquid possesses capacity to enlarge, to develop, to transform into something magnificent. She gazed directly at Marcus. "You believe your modest shop is your boundary. But Marcus, the shop isn't the boundary. Your conception is the boundary. The inquiry isn't, can I accomplish something substantial? The inquiry is, what if I cease informing myself I cannot?" Most individuals don't falter because they aspire too loftily and fail to achieve. They falter because they aspire too modestly and succeed. They expend their whole existences constructing modest, secure enterprises, never comprehending they possessed the capacity for excellence. Marcus perceived something fracture open inside his torso. A confinement he didn't realize he'd constructed. "But Mrs. Rodriguez," he stated quietly, "what if I attempt and falter? What if I'm not capable?" Mrs. Rodriguez smiled. "Marcus, permit me to inform you something I absorbed the difficult way. The suffering of remorse for not attempting is far more severe than the suffering of attempting and faltering. Because failure instructs you. Remorse just torments you." She positioned a palm on Marcus's shoulder. "You don't require to comprehend how to construct the corporation today. You merely require to resolve that you're willing to conceive beyond the modest tumbler." Marcus departed that workspace with his consciousness rotating. For the initial occasion in years, he permitted himself to conceive without boundaries. That evening, he and Jennifer remained awake until 4 a.m., not worrying but strategizing. What if they didn't merely rescue the shop? What if they revolutionized it? What if they established something the massive corporation couldn't provide? Not reduced costs, but authentic relationships. A location where individuals desired to assemble, not merely purchase. The subsequent morning, Marcus contacted the proprietor of the vacant property adjacent. The proprietor had been attempting to transfer it for 3 years. Marcus formulated an proposition. Uncertain, bold, alarming. The proposition utilized every portion of reserves and necessitated financing that made his palms tremble when he authorized. But he accomplished it. Within 3 weeks, construction commenced. Marcus enlarged the shop 4 times its original magnitude. But he didn't merely make it more substantial. He made it distinctive. He incorporated a modest beverage area where locals could assemble, a relationship board where regional creatives could exhibit creations, a section for regional cultivators to distribute fresh harvest. Individuals informed him he was irrational. Marcus, you're challenging a titan. This will never succeed. But now something had transformed in Marcus. He grinned and stated, perhaps, but I'd prefer attempting something substantial and faltering than succeeding at remaining modest. The initial 6 weeks were alarming. The construction expenses surpassed his allocation. Apparatus malfunctioned, authorizations were postponed, there were evenings Marcus questioned everything. But every occasion uncertainty emerged, he recalled Mrs. Rodriguez's statements. The liquid enlarges to occupy the vessel, but only if you select the more substantial vessel. He persisted. Gradually, something extraordinary transpired. The beverage section transformed into a morning assembling location. The regional harvest area attracted individuals who desired fresh interpersonal attention. The relationship board populated with regional creativity, occasion, notifications, and connections. Individuals didn't merely arrive to acquire provisions. They arrived to participate. 4 months after inaugurating, Marcus's enlarged shop was more active than it had ever been in 35 years. Not because it was more substantial than the corporation. It wasn't, but because it was constructed with substantial conception and interpersonal attention. 8 months afterward, Marcus invited Mrs. Rodriguez to visit the new shop. Mrs. Rodriguez proceeded through observing everything. The active beverage area, the cultivators section, the creativity on the surfaces, the patrons. Conversing like longtime companions. She turned to Marcus with moisture in her eyes. You didn't merely rescue a shop. You constructed a relationship. Marcus smiled. You instructed me something I'll never disregard. The magnitude of my existence was determined by the magnitude of my conception. I was existing in a modest tumbler when I could have possessed the whole pitcher. Mrs. Rodriguez acknowledged. And now you comprehend. You were consistently capable. You merely required authorization to believe it. Today, Marcus guides 5 emerging enterprise proprietors in the community. When they arrive to him, with modest, secure strategies, he inquires them the identical inquiry Mrs. Rodriguez inquired him. What if you ceased informing yourself you cannot? My companion, Marcus's narrative is not merely about enterprise. It's about every vision you've contracted to accommodate your apprehension. Every objective you've reduced to correspond your uncertainty, every aspiration you've relinquished because you persuaded yourself you weren't sufficient. Here's the reality that transformed Marcus's existence. Your capacity is never the obstacle. Your conception about your capacity is the obstacle. Recall 3 concepts. First, the magnitude of your conception determines the magnitude of your outcomes. Modest conception generates modest outcomes even with substantial exertion. Second, you don't require to comprehend how to accomplish the substantial aspiration today. You merely require to be willing to conceive it's feasible. The how discloses itself to those who dare to inquire what if. Third, remorse for not attempting will torment you more extensively than any failure from attempting. At least failure instructs you. Remorse just whispers what if for the remainder of your existence. So here's my proposition to you. Contemplate one domain of your existence where you've been embracing limitation. Perhaps it's your vocation, your connections, your wellness, your imaginative endeavors. Now inquire yourself, if I comprehended I couldn't falter, what would I pursue? Document that down. Don't evaluate it. Don't contract it. Just document the substantial audacious iteration because you are not restricted by your circumstances. You are restricted by your willingness to conceive beyond them. And today you can select to retrieve the pitcher instead of the tumbler. If this narrative motivated you to conceive more substantially about your existence, provide this video a positive reaction and distribute it with someone who requires authorization to envision. Submit a comment informing me what's one substantial concept you're going to cease contracting. What's one aspiration you're prepared to pursue at complete magnitude? Let's construct a relationship of individuals who refuse to embrace limitations.